The Behind Ears podcast crew would like to thank the following sponsors for their generous support. If you have a little one and you're going to Walt Disney World, you're going to need a stroller. I'll tell you what, KingdomStrollers.com is the place where you want to look into. I'll tell you, I've destroyed my fair share of strollers while at Walt Disney World, and those things are not cheap. But getting something from KingdomStrollers.com, they'll be able to help you pick out the perfect stroller for you. And the nice part is that because they're a Disney preferred provider, they'll be able to drop it off and pick it up right from your Disney resort at no extra charge. So if you don't want to necessarily destroy your stroller in the process and you want to have a great Disney vacation with your little one, contact KingdomStrollers.com and they'll set you right up. That's KingdomStrollers.com. Do you want to save around 40% off Disney's prices for deluxe on-property accommodations? Contact DVC-rental.com. They help out Disney Vacation Club owners rent out points that they're not going to use. These points mean savings for you on your next trip at Walt Disney World, Disneyland, Vero Beach, Florida, and Hilton Head Island in South Carolina. The DVC member books everything in your name, just like any other reservation. And if you ever decide that you want to become a DVC member, you can check out our sister company, BuyAndSellDVC.com. As a licensed realtor, they sell DVC contracts for members at a savings of 30 to 40% off Disney's prices. And if you're looking to sell your contract, BuyAndSellDVC.com has one of the industry's lowest commissions at only 6.5%. Again, that's DVC-rental.com for your rental needs and BuyAndSellDVC.com to buy or sell into the Disney Vacation Club at a large discount. And make sure you tell them that the Behind Ears podcast crew sent you.
We here at Expedition Roasters are incredibly thankful for all the love and support from our fans this year, especially our Behind the Ears podcast listeners. Your love of our specially themed coffees is what keeps us moving forward. 2018 was amazing because of all of you, and we can't wait to reveal what we have in store for 2019. So be sure to follow us on Facebook and Instagram at Expedition Roasters to keep up with all the latest events and specials. And to start the new year off right, we're also offering our Behind the Ears podcast listeners that have ordered with us before 15% off their next purchase through January with code EARS15. And first-time orderers can still take 20% off with code EARS20. That's EARS15 and EARS20 at ExpeditionRoasters.com. Brew, your happy place.
You're listening to the Behind Ears podcast because everybody does Disney differently. Hey, everybody. Good evening and welcome back to another episode of the Behind Ears podcast. I am your host, Mr. Chris, and Danny told me this is his last episode that he is going to miss because of his special assignment, which is, as you know, code for he is stuck at work. But that is okay because we've had a good winter season. He told me on the phone today earlier, he is so looking forward to getting back into the studio. He cannot wait for next Thursday's show because that will be his first show back. If we do anything for New Year's, well, it'll probably be me babbling about New Year's, but won't be all that much. But tonight, everybody, I have got a special guest with me tonight. His name is Chad, and he is the podcaster over at My DVC Points. And I got to tell you something. I have had some really good conversations with him over the past several days, and I cannot wait to just get into this conversation. But first, Chad, how are you doing? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Oh, hey, thanks for having me on the show, Chris. Mm-hmm. So my name is Chad. I run the podcast, MyDVCPoints.com. And what we do is interview DVC members because, like Chris, everybody does do Disney differently. And while a lot of podcasts you're familiar with, do trip reports, at DVC, it's a membership for a lifetime. And so what I do is membership reports. So I interview people and get their Disney story because everybody has a unique, different Disney story with their own magical memories and what they did Disney before joining the Vacation Club, how they've done Disney since they've joined, and what's on their DVC bucket list. And those are the kind of things that we talk about.
And, it was really, really kind of interesting when Chad and I talked for me to actually be on his show, which was just an awesome experience. And that'll be actually coming out here very shortly. The fact
Episode 15, it's in editing right now.
Awesome. The cool part about it is that it caused me to think a little bit about my different DVC experiences as a member, going from debating to becoming a member to becoming a first-time member, and now having it for over a decade, and how my DVC vacations, how my Disney vacations in general have actually changed. And it's to be very honest, they've changed quite a bit. And Chad and I were talking a little bit offline about just how DVC members do things a bit differently, just because they pretty much know they're coming back. Whereas you mentioned the other day the statistic that most Walt Disney World guests actually save up for 3 to 5 years for a typical
3 to 5
vacation.
years is what it takes an average family in America to save up for their Disney trip.
Which basically means, everybody, that for those of us who tend to go once, or dare I even say more per year, we're not average. 2, 3, 4 times. I know.
Yep.
I know I've been doing the 2 times a year for the past couple of years, and it's definitely a joy to do so. But even that little bit of information, Chad, caused me to think, because how you sometimes see on TV commercials, results not typical. Well, I could just say vacation frequency is not typical, I guess, in the whole realm of Walt Disney World vacations. So kind of get us a little bit of a jump start here. I know that you have a couple, I shouldn't say more than a couple different contracts. What if you don't mind me asking, what are your different home resorts?
Oh, my first, I'll go in order. So my first resort that we bought was Bay Lake, and then Saratoga. And then we fell in love with Beach Club, and the add-onitis is real. Okay. The add-onitis is real at my house. And then we decided, it might not be a bad idea to have a few bit more direct points. So we did a Poly add-on and a Copper Creek add-on. And then I decided, hey, I found a good deal on an Animal Kingdom, and I bought it and I flipped it. Then from there, we got into some Grand Cal points, just a couple small contracts. Most of my contracts are very small. I like them small because they would sell faster if I ever decide to get out, and they cost less.
That's actually an interesting point, to have multiple smaller contracts. And I don't think I've ever met anybody that actually had the multiple small contract type of scenario. I think maybe because at first I always thought, if I'm not going to stay at one place, I'm going to stay at another. And I always kind of got the impression of, if I'm going to try to add on, the way I have a March use year, and I think it's very convenient for the way that I do vacations, because I'm either going summer or I'm going spring break. So it's going to be sometime after that March 1st date, or it's going to be sometime in the summer. So it's a good use year for me. Do you think it's more difficult to actually get add-ons for a specific use year for a specific resort?
No, I don't, because I mean, there's only 8 use years out there. Okay. So the resale market is pretty dang hot, and contracts come and go. Now, all of mine happen to line up on February, and they line up in February for a specific reason. DVC sells a travel insurance policy for $89 per year, and it covers all the contracts on one particular member number. And when you have everything titled the same and all on the same member number, you could have thousands upon thousands of points, and they're all covered. All trips are covered for $89 a year. So
sorry about that. Go ahead.
Well, yeah, I mean, you were doing the math right there. You were picking that up.
I was. I mean, so basically what you're saying, though, is that regardless of regardless of your resort, once you start with, you get your first resort, you get your member number. So any other resort, any other contract that you add on with the same use year will assume that same member number, just with the certain suffix at the end for a particular.
Right. So like your first one is usually at like a .0.
Right.
And then if you add on, and remember, they have to be titled the same as well.
Yeah.
Which means if they're titled differently, it'll be a different member number.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. But because all of mine are titled the same and they all have the same use year, all of these contracts at the 7-month mark, I can blend them and book anything. Take a few points from this one, a few points from this one, and blend them. And then if I cancel it, they just all revert back to their old contract. Boom, right back there, and book another one. Whereas life gets a little complicated if you've got multiple member numbers, and you actually have to call member services to transfer from one contract to the other, and it just gets complicated. So we looked at it up front and said, nope, everything on one. And then when we found the TravelX insurance policy for $89, that covers pretty much anything. If you're staying on points, you're covered. So my wife looked at that and said, I want that. It's the best $89 I could spend to know if, the dog gets sick or somebody. We have elderly parents now, and they're up into their 70s, and if they get sick or something happens to them, and we got to hop a plane and book it back to Detroit, that we can do it, and TravelX has our back on it. So,
and is that something that's done through DVC, or is that a third-party vendor?
No, it's through DVC. You actually buy this through Disney Vacation Club member services.
See, I'm glad I'm asking that question, because there's a lot of people that ask about trip insurance throughout different types of Disney boards out there. And, generally speaking, I am not a trip insurance kind of person. However, I can tell you that there are some bits of, do I want to say paranoia, anxiety, with, still having, my mother-in-law is getting up there in age and we're the closest to her and so on and so forth. And I always thought that the trip insurance for DVC contracts was pretty much a per reservation incident, very much like other types of trip insurance. But knowing
that's what makes this incredible.
I mean, for under $100, for as many points as you have, as many vacations as you have, that actually does become quite a really good, little bit of a protection plan. And I never knew that.
Now, keep in mind, they all have to be on this. You buy the contract for one member number.
Yes.
Right. And so when we look at this, and, my wife looked at it and went, okay, so we tend to go twice a year, 1 year, or once a year, 1 year, and we buy an annual pass. And so when that annual pass is up, another great benefit of being a DVC member, it was like $600 a person for an annual pass. Well, heck, you can't buy a 7-day park hopper pretty much for that anymore.
Right.
Okay. So when our annual pass is up, we'll start it in August, and we'll take our summer vacation then. We might pop down for a couple weekends over the course of the year, maybe spring break. And then the next year, but right before the passes expire, we do something called AP looping. What we do is go back in July for another full family vacation.
Mm-hmm.
So we get 2 years family vacations off of one set of annual passes.
Yep.
And it's $89 a year. Okay. It's $89 per use year. Let me clarify that.
Sure.
And the other thing is I've been in contact with the TravelX people, and at one point in time, they were going to come on my show. I got to reach out to them. And so hopefully I'll link this episode to them. And cause I know it's a topic that most DVC members don't understand.
Well, I know I sure didn't. I mean, that makes a lot of sense. And it makes sense that it's per use here for a person such as myself that has one contract. I mean, but yet still goes multiple times per year as a DVC member. I mean, that still makes a lot of sense. And do they pretty much cover like the points plus travel expenses? I mean, other types of, the usual type of travel.
Now keep in mind, I'm not a represent. I'm just
right.
I'm a user of the company.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm a consumer here.
Yeah.
But this is my understanding is your points are somewhat covered in the fact that if you can't use any of the other means that we have as DVC members, like the 60 window holding account, if you really get up against a wall, they'll do a refund using a formula. And from what I gather, it's about like getting your maintenance dues refunded.
Right.
Okay. So that's better than nothing. But I look at it from, I have to take an emergency flight home. As long as my stay is booked on points, I'm covered.
See that
okay.
And have you ever had to actually file a claim?
I have not, but I did have an opportunity where I could have, because it covers your up to 7 people in your travel party. And so one of my friends came down. It was a couples trip when our annual passes were up, couples trip in May. And we met another couple down there, stayed at Beach Club in Grand Flow, a little bit of a split stay between the parks. And right about the time the Beach Club ended, their dog had to go into like an emergency surgery.
Oh, wow.
And so she had to hop a plane and go back. And without thinking about it, he just used frequent flyer miles to get her back home. But we probably could have called member services and had that trip covered.
That's very interesting. And I mean, especially coming from someone who has, used it and is actually a consumer of it, that's a very good testimony for that. I think people could rest easy with something like that. I really like that idea. Not to drag that.
Yeah, we somehow got onto this, but for $89, I mean, figure for us, if we go 4 times that year, okay, that's not unheard of, and it's not unlikely. So for what, $22.50? Okay, I got coverage for a trip.
Yeah, you can't buy a meal at Disney for $22.50 in most cases.
Nah, I blow $22.50 on Dole Whips.
There you go.
Right.
Serious. And I'll tell you what, not right now. Not right now. We cannot get into the food conversation right now, because by all means, I know everybody expects us to go down the food conversation, just because we haven't had a good food conversation derailment in a number of episodes. So I promise myself I will wait a little bit longer before we actually get to that point there, Chad.
Okay.
So...
Bad Chad. No food talk.
No. Especially Dole Whips, and especially since right now, and this is an unsolicited plug, considering that I have the Pineapple Whip candle by the Lemon Sisters sitting right here. This is actually going to one of our lucky winners from our recent contest. I'm sorry, it's one of those things. Even though it's the middle of a show, oh my gosh, it smells so good. Okay, enough about that. As I said. Not necessarily a sponsor, just awesome people that listen to the show.
Hey, it's a great product. Shout it out, man.
It is. It is a great product. All right. So I have to ask, favorite resort before we go any further. What is the resort that you say is your go-to resort if you just...
Beach Club by far, right?
Oh, yeah.
There's like nothing else that hangs with that pool, that walk to Epcot, that quick boat ride to Hollywood Studios. Beach Club, all day long. Beach Club.
Oh, I love the Beach Club. And the thing of it is that it's... The funny part about the Beach Club is that before I actually went to the Beach Club, even just in the regular resort part, I watched Samantha Brown's Great Hotels. And this goes back a number of years. And she's going through the Beach Club, and she describes it as, the decorum is kind of like saltwater taffy. Now, I realized that was a long time ago, and they've kind of done refurbs, obviously, since then. But it was kind of funny because the first time I went there, I'm like, yes, it just kind of has that nice Eastern Seaboard feel to it. And yes, it's right there by Epcot. You have Stormalong Bay, which, let's just face it, the best pool area.
Oh,
period. Oh,
the sand bottom alone, man. It's my joke is I need to feel the sand between my toes, right? I mean, that's my Beach Club.
It's kind of interesting because they have the sand bottom pool, and then they have the kind of like a lazy river portion to it. But here's the funny part about the lazy river portion. And I don't know if you kind of noticed this. Thank you. It's really stinking deep.
It's like 8 feet plus in one point.
I was like, I never realized how deep it was. All of a sudden I kind of like fell off the raft. I'm like, it was really bad. I'm like, I mean, I'm a really good swimmer, and all of a sudden it caught me way off guard. And
there's a reason they have 17 lifeguards on duty at that pool at all times.
Oh, very much so. I mean, I never felt unsafe, but I also didn't necessarily want, I didn't want to cause an incident and have, a lifeguard come and get me.
Hey, the less paperwork for cast members, the better day for everybody.
Oh, yeah, yeah. And they'll probably say, hey, he's a big guy. He'll float to the top. All he has to do is stop waving around. So Mary actually is saying Beach Club is actually her home resort where she has her initial points. So
I'm with you, Mary.
Yeah, I really enjoy the Beach Club. Not to mention, I mean, it was my stay there also included enjoying our first kitchen sink at Cape May Cafe. Yeah, okay. I know the food conversation.
I was gonna say I was good. I didn't go there.
I'll say that, but then I fell in love with the No Way Jose. And
that's on my list for next time.
What did I say, Cape May? I said Cape May Cafe. That's not right.
Yeah, that is.
No, it is. It is. I'm thinking. You know what I'm thinking of? No.
There's Cape May. There's the little food mart that's over there.
Yeah, but for some reason, but that's not where.
Resorts.
No, I'm thinking of the ice cream shop, and for some reason, I'm drawing a complete blank. Peaches and Cream.
Yeah, Peaches and Cream.
That's where you get the kitchen sink. Cape May Cafe has I think one of the coolest character meals because it's nice and tends to be a little bit more quiet. So, but yeah, I love that place.
It's hard for me to get my family in there. They're not seafood people. At dinner time, that open air feel and the seafood, man, the whole lobby just smells like seafood. So,
which I guess is good if you like seafood, and if
you like seafood,
yeah, it's one of those. It is definitely one of those things. Mary also just throws out there grilled cheese and tomato soup at Beaches.
Oh, that is so good, Mary.
Yeah, I'm not a tomato soup fan, but that actually sounds very appetizing. And James actually was the one that called out Beaches and Cream. Thank you very much for your help, sir. Appreciate that. So let's talk a little bit about times to go, the times that you really like to go. I mean, because I know that, like with many other DVC members, we tend to go, well, I think there's two fashions, and there's probably more. But one, we tend to go when we want to go because we have points. But also there are times that tend to be better on the point values, the number of points to go that are used to be able to go at a certain time. Or there's the special events that a lot of DVC members really love to go to. What is your favorite time of the year to go?
If I had to pick, it would probably be October, November-ish, when it's cool and food and wine's going on. But Chris, I'm married to a teacher, so I'm slave to the summer months.
Yep.
That's why we have a February use year, so that we can go spring break. We can go, and well, it's not that we can't go because we've went and did a January trip, like right before our use year ended, because my wife had a day off from work that was unexpected, and we looked and found airfare for under $200 round trip.
Oh yeah.
We looked down and said, well, we've already banked the points, but we can borrow some back in and sneak a treehouse trip in January. And because we wanted to try the tree houses and the points were low in January.
Yeah.
And so what better time to try something new that's a little on the point side? And, we invited her parents to come down with us and just had a little mini trip. The APs were up, the 200 point, the $200 airfare, when you've got the APs going, we had the points. So
it becomes
book the trip.
It becomes a relative, I don't want to say inexpensive trip, but it becomes very much more affordable when you want to just go ahead and do something like that. So, and at the same time, like Jane, she says like she likes the December to March time frame. Mary's a January and September timeframe type of person.
Yeah, point stretching.
Absolutely. So. And then, of course, Justin says, anytime there's a Run Disney race, and when we just want to go, but never summer. So that's actually cool. You know what? Kaylee actually has a good question, and I'll go ahead and let you answer it.
Okay.
Kaylee actually asks, can you explain what a use year is?
Sure, absolutely. So what happens is when you buy a contract, let's say it's 100 points, okay? You get every year you get 100 points that come up, and you have 1 year's time to use those points. Okay, 365 days, and that time starts from the beginning of your use year. So mine goes from February 1st to the very last day of January. Okay, and any reservation that falls in that time frame, let's say it's 2018, so from February 1st, 2018 to January 31st is the use year for my 2018 points. So I can make any reservation that I want whenever I want. I can make it a day in advance if there's availability, or 11 months in advance at my home resort. But the reservation falls within a use year according to my contract. And what happens is you have to use or lose those points or bank those points within your use year. And you have the first 8 months of your use year to hit the bank button. And after, months 9, 10, 11, and 12, you can no longer bank the points. So you really have to stay on top of your points and manage it and plan your trips, which I don't think is a big deal because, well, to get what you want, you're typically booking 7 months in advance anyways. So it doesn't really matter that I have to bank my points. For me, it's September 30th is my bank date. But I could have gotten away with a December use year really easily. I could have gotten away with a March one based on when we go for spring break and summer. But that's essentially the concept of use year. It's the life cycle of your points. They have a born day and a use by day, and you can extend that by banking them. But that's kind of the concept of a use year. It's fundamental. If you're going to look into DVC, I would tell you understand that concept before you buy in, because it'll just make your membership that much more enjoyable. Because you'll know it. Okay.
Yeah, and with me, I have a March use year, which, as I mentioned, was really good for me because I'm not going to be doing, let me rephrase that. I don't have too many opportunities to go during the holiday months. So from mid-November through mid-January is pretty much a no-go for me, mainly because of my wife's work schedule. So right now, the March use year gives me the opportunity to go, start with spring break, summer, or even a fall break, which I have done before in the past. And so it really works well for me. Because when we were looking at it, I actually kind of contemplated the idea of, okay, what if I just wanted to have a June use year and kind of started off in the summer months and this, that, and the other. But then I also thought to myself, that for some reason I just didn't feel comfortable, because if I use everything, I felt like if I was going to use everything, I wasn't going to have anything available for a second trip. I know it sounds kind of weird because during that time frame, I could have picked either use year and would have been just fine. But then to have everything start off right at the beginning of our availability season, so to speak, seemed to make a lot more sense. We know that we're not going to vacation in the calendar year any earlier than March 1st. And it just happened to be that was one of the first choices I had. We said, hey, this is going to fit us perfectly. And we have never had a problem. We've never had a problem getting anything at our home resort at 11 months out. And probably 85% of the time, we can get anything outside of our home resort at 7 months, as long as we call. And it tends to work out pretty well. And I don't have it.
So you call, you don't do it online?
When I've switched my reservation from my Saratoga 11-month mark to go somewhere else, I always call. It's kind of an old habit type of thing, but it's also one of those cases where if for some reason their website screws up, then I'm always concerned that, things are going to get lost, so to speak. I'm not going to have anything, everything goes into limbo. I'm going to have to call anyway. So we just make it a habit to give them a call, and they usually just, work it right out with no issues whatsoever. And it's been kind of a habit for us, and we don't really have any issues. So That's what we do. I know we usually make our initial reservation online. That's not a problem. But anytime we want to switch things, just for us, we feel like having a human to talk to works out well. And member services do
member services call center is incredible.
They do a good job.
Those people are just saints, and for the most part, they are just excellent at what they do.
They do. I mean, they really do a good job. And to tell you the truth, I think they really enjoy what they do. And I don't think my wife nor myself have ever had an interaction with member services that isn't top notch. So, by the way, Alex just wants to let you know that he loves your Sorcerer Mickey hat.
Oh, thanks. It's actually from Walt Disney Imagineering. So I had a friend who's a retired Imagineer and actually got me into Mickey's at Glendale. So that's where that came from.
Yeah, I totally get that. That is awesome. I'm a big Sorcerer Mickey fan myself. So yeah, I mean, that's kind of what we do in the sense of switching things around.
Yeah. And Mary calls too. I mean, now here's my reason for doing it online is you get an extra hour's window of doing that. So if I'm not using my beach club points and I'm trying to sneak into beach club with my Saratoga points, okay, which is like the likely case because I don't have enough beach club to just stay there all the time, that I feel like I get an extra hour's edge by doing it right at the opening bell at 8 a.m. and doing it right then. Whereas otherwise you've got to wait till member services close up. It's either 8 or 9, 7 or 8. I always look it up every time just to be sure.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And especially if you're trying to get one of the harder resorts to get into, especially if you're trying to switch it at 7 months for, say, the Grand Californian, if you decide to go out west. Let's face it, smallest number of rooms available. Not impossible to get after 7 months, just somewhat improbable if you don't play your cards right.
You feel like you won the lotto when you get that one.
Yes, right? It's one of those cases where you look at it and you're like, oh my gosh, they have 4 days available at the Grand California. And I'm like, book the flights. You know, it's just, you know, you have to kind of figure it out a little bit there.
Book the room first, then book the flights, right? Book the room.
It's like she's booking the room. I'm booking the flights. So I haven't yet to be able to have the luxury of staying at the Grand Cali yet. I've stayed at the Disneyland Hotel. That was absolutely fabulous. But yeah, still I haven't seen that. Let's see. Albert actually asked a good question. If I want to rent DVC points for Poly, when is it usually the least expensive for a weekend? And I think right now, especially for, you know, for the next year or so, usually, to tell you the truth, Albert, my opinion, and Chad, I'd like to hear your opinion on this. It's going to vary because with all the different festivals and events that are going on these days, between Run Disney events, the Food and Wine, the Art Festival, all the Christmas stuff. Excuse me, we're both coughing.
Sorry.
No problem. You know, it's very hard to tell because it can alternate. I would probably say, you know, head over to like our friends over at DVC-rental.com. They have a point calculator, and using that point calculator, it would be able to tell you, you know, what are your options for how many points. You know, you can actually see, especially according to your own availability, what would be a resort that would fit within the number of points that you would have to rent out. So you can look up Poly and you can look up different weekends, and it should be able to give you a general idea of what that type of vacation would cost you.
Yeah, using Scott Site's a great resource. I believe he does have a point calculator there. Mm-hmm. If you're just wanting to know the dates, the cheapest point season in DVC land is called Adventure Season.
Right.
And it runs January 1st through the 31st, September 1st through the 30th, and then the first 2 weeks of December, the 1st through the 14th. And you're looking at a standard studio of 16 points a night, Monday through Friday, or Sunday through Thursday, and then Friday night and Saturday night would be 19 points. Those are the 2019 rates. 2020, they're going up. So you definitely want to run a really good calculator. And those point charts for 2020 just came out. So I don't think anybody's got their calculators or apps up to date yet.
No, and they literally just came out, and they did re-swizzle a lot of the dates and a lot of the points for many different types of rooms. So, but you know what? Let's go ahead and change gears here just briefly, because we have someone watching that would like to ask us a little bit about a fast pass question. And around here, we also do a little bit of trip planning. We like to help everybody out. And so Rachel actually asks here, I'm overwhelmed with how to choose fast passes. That's okay, Rachel. We'll get you through this. I haven't been to Disney World since 1998, and it'll be my husband, myself, and my 8-year-old daughter. What's the best way to go about planning the passes? We're going the last week of March. Excellent question. Let me go ahead and throw my 2 cents in, because I've gone at March, and I'm going to make an assumption here, Rachel, that you are also staying on site. Okay. Mm-hmm. I'll start with that. I'll go ahead and quantify it that at 60 days out, if you are staying on site, you're able to make your fast passes for the first 10 days of your trip. And at the same time, if you are staying off site, instead of 60 days, it's actually 30 days. So this is my 2 cents. And this is one of those cases where I think it's a little bit easier for me to do fast passes because I go more frequently. Fast passes don't, I still want to get my favorites, but I'm much more flexible, in sense of, if I don't get something, I'm not going to panic. Especially with an 8-year-old daughter. This is my 2 cents. I would say try to get your fast passes middle morning to early afternoon. And I'll explain what I mean by that. You go online to My Disney Experience, and I do recommend that you don't use the app, that you use a computer and an actual browser. Your mileage may vary, taxes not included, but I tend to have better experience in being able to get what I need by just doing it on the computer. I don't know. Have you had any different experiences, Chad, with that?
I'm like you. I like the browser approach, but I also have, I'm the guy at 7 a.m. I'm behind my keys, tapping away, getting my passes. Okay.
Yeah.
And so I have the approach that I have the browser up and I have the app up on my iPhone right next to me, because I've talked to a couple different travel agents that said one platform could be glitchy while the other one still works. Mm-hmm. So if one starts to glitch, I go to the other one right there.
That's actually a really wise move. I mean, it's like having your own little, redundancy backup system there to try to get it all covered. But yeah, go ahead.
To further answer her question, I would want to know, what will the 8-year-old do? Okay. Because my 7-year-old daughter loves Flight of Passage. So given that, and if your 8-year-old will do roller coasters, she's going to love Slinky Dog. It's a phenomenal little roller coaster. And so if those two are on my agenda, then I'm going to come back in and I'm going to book as soon as 7 a.m. comes up. I'm going to go to my last 2 days of the trip and book those fast passes for those days. Because you want to start at the end of the trip for the hottest fast passes, because they're going to sell out at about 63 days for Slinky Dog, 3 days, 64 days maybe for Flight of Passage. And Mary says she uses both as well. But I book the hot ones at the end of the trip first, and then I work my way backwards. And I usually come back in and start my trip out at Magic Kingdom. And you can pretty well get an evening fast pass for Seven Dwarfs at 60 days by the time I do that. And that's kind of my strategy on it.
And I think that working backwards is actually a really cool way to be able to start off a little bit slower on your trip, but then you have easy for me to say, but that you'll actually have those big heavy hitters towards, I'll say, the mid to end part of your trip. And that way you can do whatever you want beforehand. As long as you know that you have a Flight of Passage at Animal Kingdom and, possibly even a Kilimanjaro safari, or you have a Slinky Dog. Which with an 8-year-old, I mean, I don't know. I got my daughter on the rock and roller coaster when she was 8. She hated me for it.
Yeah.
Now it's like, Dad, let's go to rock and roller coaster. Hey, Dad, let's do it again. Hey, Dad, single rider line's empty. Yeah. So it's one of those things. So I mean, you kind of have to.
Proud daddy moment, huh?
Oh gosh. Oh yeah. Seriously. I mean, I wish I could. Sooner or later, my son will get that same sense of adventure. But right now, it's my daughter and I. And so to tell you the truth, Rachel, I would probably also look to see what your daughter would like to do, since this is obviously her first trip. If you haven't been back since 28 plus years, kind of get a feel for what she would like to do first. And I think there are many good guides out there that can tell you a little bit about the different types of attractions that are available at each park that may be maybe suitable for a younger child. Also, just, this is going to sound silly to say this, but I'll say it for everybody's benefit. Also, making sure that your child is of a certain height. Some children are still a little bit smaller than others, so that also limits you as well. There are a lot of good guides online, like allears.net actually has some different things like that online. Mouse Planet has some things online about that. Or you can also go to the WDW community page over on Facebook, and we could also continue that discussion about what kinds of rides over there. Just drop us a line over there. And there's a lot of people that would be able to give you some of their experiences, especially with their kids. But I think right now, before you even figure out about, being overwhelmed, it may help by just, eliminating some things by finding out what your daughter would like to do. Flight of Passage, I think, is very, very smooth. It's fabulous. It's wonderful for, younger children who can still, meet the height requirements, etc. Soarin' over at Epcot, the same way. Even Test Track could be a great thrill for a younger child.
Yeah.
I would Oh, absolutely. I would probably say stay away from, not necessarily stay away from, but consider it down the road for, Mission Space, or at least you can do the green side. Seven Dwarfs, you could do all the mountains. You can do Slinky Dog. Tower of Terror even possibly, if they like that sort of thing. And again, age restrictions, or not age restrictions, height restrictions.
Chris, I would also tell her to sit down with like an iPad and a YouTube. Right?
Very
just
good.
have the daughter watch the ride experience videos. Now, yes, you're going to have spoilers, but I would rather have a spoiler here in knowing that my kid is comfortable getting on it than them, freaking out in the line and saying, no, I don't want to do this. And then you got to do a rider swap or somehow ruin your trip. Or this way you can ensure you're getting the fast passes that this kid will enjoy and like.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I think, you're right. It's okay to spoil some things, especially if you're not 100% sure. I will admit that the first time my daughter went on Rock and Roller Coaster with me, we actually talked about this while she was home for Christmas. And it was like, Dad, stop this thing. I got to get off. Stop. And she looked green afterwards. I felt so horrible. I was such a bad dad. I have to admit it. Christina brings up another thing is that, don't forget, especially if you're staying on site and there's an extra magic hour in the morning, a lot of people will take advantage of that for any attraction that is open at that time that you are not able to get a fast pass for. Or like what we did this past July, we had a fast pass for Kilimanjaro Safari at like 10 o'clock. It was extra magic hour at 8 o'clock for opening of Animal Kingdom. We did not have a fast pass for Flight of Passage. So we got there at rope drop. And while the wait time was supposed to be about 65 minutes, it did end up being a 2-hour wait, which was ridiculous. But at least I was there, my wife and I, two great friends of ours, and it was a good time had by all. Then when we were done, we went right over to Kilimanjaro Safari. So yeah, find out what you want to do. Take a look at some videos. 60-day, keep that in mind, and write things down. Write down the list. I'll say this will probably be the last item, but write down what you want to do. Kind of put them a little bit into something of a priority order and try to hit them first. And I would take a deep breath. It's not as bad as some people make it out to be, but I do understand that if this is your first trip since the late 90s, I can understand it's something that is totally different. If you have any other questions with that, please join us over at the WDW community page. Feel free to post over there. Ask us any questions. We got you covered. It's as simple as that. So, but yeah. Also, Alex also mentions check out articles online about fast passes or buy a book on guidebook for Walt Disney World Resort. There's several different out there. And actually, to tell you the truth, you may even be able to find them at your local library. They may be a year or two old, but a lot of times we'll find find one of them. And sometimes you can even get like the Burrabaum Walt Disney World for Kids, which actually is a really good book. Passporter has a really good book for that as well. Not no one sponsoring me there, but it's the books that we have used in the past. So those are always really good.
My other final thoughts here would be, don't be afraid to call Disney and ask. Okay.
Yeah.
Their call centers are top notch. And keep in mind, I work professionally in the call center business. And so I've heard their call center spiels going, they don't care about average handle time. They care about making happy customers. Yeah. And they will take the time to explain this for you. So if you're not using a travel agent, you can call Disney and use them as one. But the other advice here is if you're really feeling overwhelmed, book the trip through a travel agent. It won't cost you any more than using Disney.
Nope. And
you then get the personalized service of somebody who can sit down and hammer this out for you.
Those are all really good points. I mean, the fact of the matter is that there's a lot of different avenues for help. I always tell people to just think about Douglas Adams and The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Don't panic. It's one of those things. You could do that. So let's see. We only have about 15 minutes or so left, and like every other of our conversations, Chad, it just seems to be going by way too quickly. But you know what? Mary's actually going to I'm going to use her comment here as a little bit of a segue, because I told our listeners tonight that we would like to talk a little bit about some money saving tips. And while we'll cover some money saving tips in regards to DVC, I know that you have some other really good money saving, or dare I even say money acquiring tips that I was wondering if you'd like to help share that out with our listeners tonight, mainly because let's face it, we're recording this right after Christmas. We all feel a little bit broke. We're all trying to figure out how we're going to save up for our next Disney vacation. And money's always a good thing to concentrate on after the new year.
Yeah, well, my number one strategy is I just have a line item in my budget in a savings account at an online bank, and every time I get paid, $400 goes to the Disney envelope. Okay, so I have the cash sitting there available, but the question is how do I stretch that cash and get the most bang for my buck? Yeah. And so I follow a couple of people that do gift card techniques, to where like Sam's always has gift cards for about 4% off.
Right.
Okay. And so you can walk into a Sam's Club and get a 4% discount on your vacation by just buying their gift cards. And they have them in a $500 denomination. And you pay about $485 for that. But then the real secret comes in is to stacking other opportunities out there. So I'm a big fan of the Dosh app, and the Dosh app right now has, if you link a credit card to it and use that credit card at Sam's, you'll get 2% back. Last weekend, it was 5%. The weekend before that, it was 8%. So that's just free money that's coming back into you through some kind of online rebate program. I know other people do the same thing with BJ's, and they'll use Ebates and BJ's, and then they'll come back in and hit it again with a third stacking discount, and they'll use something like a Chase Freedom card or a Discover card when it pops up to 5% back at warehouses. So that's another 5% you can get on there from the deal. Now, keep in mind, you got to have the cash to pay for these cards and work all these programs, and it's a pain in the tail consolidating all of these gift cards. But with my contracts and my DVC, it's gift card paying times for DVC dues, right?
Pick a card, any card.
Right? Yeah, pick a card, any card. And this is my stack of gift cards where I use this trick, and you can get anywhere from, at a minimum, 4%. But that's usually not good enough for me. I'm 10% is like my normal going rate. My local grocery store will do a buy a $500 gift card, get $50 in free groceries. Well, that's 10%. Okay, so I look for the deals and the tricks like that.
Yeah, for something you're going to need anyway.
Yeah, some people do Kroger's for fuel reward points, and I haven't done that yet because to me it's just too much hassle to line up 2 SUVs to fill up for their bonus dollars off of this and fill up 2 SUVs at the pump at the same time. That's too much hassle for me. I mean, this is all a hassle, right? You got to work to save this money, but it's what's the hassle factor that's right for you and your family.
Right. And the one thing I definitely want to emphasize, and Chad pretty much touched on this, I want to say it again, just to make sure everybody's clear. You got to have the cash, the actual, money to do this. Because let's face it, you roll over a credit card balance while doing this, even if it's by accident, and you have a very good chance of wiping out every last dime that you were attempting to save. I mean, I know there's a lot of people that don't like to use credit cards. Hey, you know what? Completely respect that.
I get it, man.
Yeah. I mean, it is just one of those things. I don't judge or anything like that. I hope people don't judge me for using a credit card, but I treat my credit card as cash. If I don't have the cash in pocket for whatever I'm buying,
you don't spend it.
I don't.
That's my take. That's why I started this whole conversation with my budget has a Disney envelope, and it's just an online savings account.
Yes.
And every time I get paid, I throw money there. Right.
Absolutely.
I have another envelope I use the envelope system.
Yeah.
And it works out very, very, very well.
And regardless of what system people use, budgeting for a Disney trip is obviously the first way to really be able to afford it. The fact of the matter is that if you have the cash going into it and you know that you have it all budgeted, you will never walk out of a Disney vacation saying to yourself, wow, I feel like I'm in so much debt after the vacation. If you do that, something needs to be improved the next time you do it. I just don't believe in going into debt for a vacation. I've said this before. I'll say it again. I have canceled vacations because of some sort of financial reasoning, whether it be, I realized I didn't have as much money in my savings for a Disney trip than I thought. Something comes up. One time I was buying a house and having a kid. Those are not money drainers by any. And
those are all really good reasons why, as a DVC member, you need a relationship with somebody like your sponsor over at DVC-Rental.
Right, absolutely.
Because if you need to punt, it's real easy to bank those points. Call up Scott or IM him on Facebook. I've done that and rented out some points through him, so he'll do you right.
Absolutely. And I mean, that makes a very good point. As a DVC member, I don't have to worry about that. While I have not had, I've rented points more than I've, rented out points. There have been times where people have joined me on vacations, where we will go ahead and get like a 2-bedroom villa, and I will charge them a certain amount for that second bedroom, type of thing. Mm-hmm. That's worked out quite well at times. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of different things that you can do as a DVC member as well. I like the Dosh app idea. I'm actually going to be trying that. You and I talked about that in some pretty good detail last night during our offline conversation. I mean, it's that point where, even as a DVC member, you can pay your dues with gift cards, and, every little bit that you can save, I mean, think about it. If you save $150 on a Disney vacation, which through some of these techniques is not unheard of, and it's probably a low amount at that. The fact
you should be shooting for 10%.
Yeah, that's a good goal. I mean, the fact of the matter is, 10%. I mean, you can practically pay for like a really nice meal at the California Grill for a family of 4. I know something like that.
The other thing is absolutely everything Disney sells is acquirable through a gift card. Okay. Whether it's a cruise, whether it's your membership dues, whether it's the meal plan, whether it's an individual meal, whether it's merchandise, almost everything on your Disney vacation can be purchased with a gift card. So why not take the time and budget and plan? And the other great thing is if you come back in and let's say you have $1,000 gift card when you start your vacation and you say, hey, look, this is my spending money for this trip. When that $1,000 is gone, it's gone. And you'll start to spend it a little bit more wisely.
Right. And so, I mean, we also talked a little bit, right now Dosh is the good app to use. And there's other apps out there that'll do very similar things. You have to know what you're getting into. You have to do a little bit of research as to what their offers are for where you shop. I always have this fear that if all of a sudden I find out that I can get a certain percentage off at somewhere where I don't normally shop, if I don't want to accidentally spend money unnecessarily because I feel like I'm saving something. It was kind of funny.
That's part of their marketing strategy is to get you into what's called spaving. Okay.
Spend and saving.
Yeah. You're spending money thinking you're saving and you're not saving until you make a deposit. Okay. Let's just be clear.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Saving money has a deposit slip on it. Stretching your dollars further, another concept.
I like that. Spaving. I'm gonna have to remember that. Because how many times have, my wife has said, yeah, well, how much did you spend? Well, I saved this. Okay, that's not really the answer to the question. Thank you for giving me that piece of information. How much did you spend? And then I usually get the "I love you, honey." But fortunately, she knows what the budget is, so she knows not to go over the budget. So at least I know that. But I have to give her a little bit of a hard time because, well, if I didn't, it's just one of those things. So that's one of those cases. I also say that if you want to, if you're not buying an annual pass, I would probably say if you want to save a little bit and it's not a whole lot, you can still go to places like undercovertourist.com to get your tickets online.
Yep.
Again, you're not going to save like hundreds of dollars, but you can save enough where it's going to pay for, a nice meal for your family, nice counter service meal or something like that.
Now, Undercover Tourist won't take a Disney gift card. Okay?
No, they won't.
So you can't double dip that. And when I've done the math on it, it pretty much comes out that you're better off with the gift card technique.
Oh, really?
You'll save a little bit more than those discounters will.
Okay.
But I would do the math again beforehand. Right. I'm not opposed to undercover disc. Anybody who give me a deal, let's talk. Okay. I need me a deal. That's just the way I roll.
And it's something to consider, especially if for some reason you don't want to do a gift card type deal. But at the same time, why wouldn't you want to try it? And I'll be honest with you. Until I talked to Chad a couple days ago about the whole gift card thing in detail for someone who obviously, as you saw, he has a stack of cards as tall as my fist. The fact of it is that I've kind of looked at it. I haven't looked at it that closely before, but now I realize I can save. If I can save almost $75 easily through some different techniques on just my DVC dues, I mean that's $75 is
$75.
It's $75, and if you find different ways to basically save throughout your Disney vacation, I mean, you're actually reducing your overall costs. For every little bit that you do, at the end, it stacks up to a pretty decent amount.
Or you're stretching your dollars, and for $75, you could do the new Storybook dining experience. That's $59 plus tax, right?
Very true. I mean, and that's you can pay for a nice experience, or you can go to do a nice little tour or something like that, or you can do more, because I mean think about it, Chad. How many people, when Disney was talking about the price increases and this, that, and the other, especially with the parking increases for non-DVC members at non-DVC resorts, people
we got it in dues, trust us.
Yeah,
so
I mean, people
there
got
was no free parking.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. There is no free lunch. There is no free parking. At the same time, people are saying, I need to figure out how I'm going to pay for this. Well, sometimes you just have to, get a little creative. And as you said, it takes a little time to do it.
It's work, okay?
Yeah.
Especially because you got to then, if you're buying smaller gift cards, you really need to go to DisneyGiftCard.com and consolidate the cards. And Mary pulls out a really good point. Target used to have a deal out there, and Target got tired of getting taken advantage of, because what we were doing is we were going in and buying $2,000 of Target gift cards when they were on sale for $1,800. And then you turn around the next day and you walk in and you've paid $1,800 for $2,000 of Target gift cards. And you walk in the next day and you buy $2,000 of Disney gift cards. And that was an instant 10% off. Okay. And Target has since shut that loophole down. Okay. So there's like a news relevancy here. And I'm really considering, once I figure out a website name, of just publishing an ebook on this, and then a newsletter that says, hey, every time I hear of the latest stacking technique or deal, I'll send out an email and you can subscribe to it. It's in the works.
Yeah. And it was kind of funny, because even the other day I went to Target to buy a gift card for somebody, and even on their screen, this is a gift card. It cannot be purchased with another gift card. So I was like, yeah, they closed that one really good. So, well, Chad, we're kind of at the top of the hour. We've had some really good conversation with our viewing audience tonight. So I'll tell you what, do you have any final words of wisdom before we start closing up shop for tonight?
No, if you're interested in DVC, come over and check out my podcast, My DVC Points. It's available pretty much any place you listen to a podcast. You can find me online, Twitter, Facebook, the whole 9 yards, and learn about DVC. That's the whole point of us doing the podcast, is to interview and talk to real members and get their experience on it, so that you can make an educated decision about this product and see if it's right for your family. We don't have like agendas or anything to promote, or we just tell people stories, and you can learn from stories and figure out, hey, this makes sense for you, and you might want to try Disney differently this way. And we're available, and reach out to us. So.
Absolutely. And I will definitely say that, go out and check out Chad's podcast. Go ahead and subscribe to it. Check out a number of the episodes that he has. The one thing about his show is a little bit different than a lot of other shows, is that the information really is timeless, as he mentioned it to me, in the sense of, you're going to hear some really good stories from DVC members. And those are the kinds of, magic making stories that I think we want to hear, not just to, encourage people to really consider DVC membership, but mainly to realize there's a lot of different ways to do Disney. And of course, I do think that, attractions are great. Getting a little taste of the magic is awesome. But, the big thing is make those memories as a family, as by yourself, with your significant other, however, make memories. Because you know what? You can do a lot of different things in this world, but to tell you the truth, making memories is one of the things that'll stick with you forever. So, Chad, thank you so much
Thanks for having me. I've enjoyed it.
This is absolutely fabulous, and I know that we can go on, but I'm afraid if I do, we'll be on for another 4 hours.
Yeah, I know how that goes.
So let me go ahead and press this button, and then we'll close out. You heard the show, and we hope you want more. Well, feel free to join us over at our social media platforms. Instagram and our Facebook page can be found at Behind the Ears Podcast. Our webpage is behindtheearspodcast.net, and our email is behindtheearspodcast@gmail.com. And our Twitter handle is @BehindTheEarsPC. and come and join the conversation about all things Disney over at the WDW community page. Don't forget to rate and review the show over at iTunes or Apple Podcasts, as it really helps us get the word out about the show. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the show on iTunes or Apple Podcasts or the Podbean app. Also, you can listen to us on Stitcher Radio, iHeartRadio, TuneIn Radio, and via Alexa and Google Home. All right, everybody. Thank you very much for your time tonight. We're so glad to basically have everybody here on our last recording session for 2018. Wow, it has been another year, and I know that Danny and I really cannot wait until 2019, which is only just a few days away. We have got some really awesome things planned, and we are going to start this year off with a bang. Well, everybody, thank you so much for joining, and I'll tell you what. Until we meet again, I hope you have an absolutely magical day. Take care.